Okay, good morning everybody. Nikki Burnett here, Taste Life Nutrition Radio, streaming live on KUHSdenver.com. Today we have a guest, although as what can often happen when you practice medicine, things get pushed back. So we are going to just go ahead and get started. We're going to chat a little bit about what today's conversation is going to be about. And we'll have Dr. Ben Busch join us from ViveWell as soon as he gets here. So my expectation is probably within the next 5 minutes or so, he'll jump in, he'll join us, and we'll begin our conversation. Which
The microphone has to face you.
Oh, is it not? Oh,
Turn it sideways.
see it.
Sideways and then face.
Sideways, and then what do you mean?
Sideways. Turn it sideways and face it.
And then
There you go.
oh. Okay, better.
So you can hear it.
Yeah, there's always something, right? Anyway, yeah, I guess if I'm not talking into the microphone, then nobody can hear me. So anyway, you know, we often talk about, we always start the show with gratitude, but today we're going to wait for Dr. Busch to come hang out with us, and then we'll start our show with gratitude. But you know, we talk a lot about the root cause of health, the root cause of dysfunction, and you know, what does that mean? But really, it's always about asking the question why. When we're talking about foundational health is essentially mitochondrial health, right? And you know, something that I think about a lot is probably many of us haven't heard the term mitochondria since, you know, like 7th grade science class. But it's such an important part of who we are, of our energy, of our state of health or state of dysfunction. And we have to support our mitochondria. So foundational health includes, in large part, includes mitochondrial health. It includes cellular health. If we have cellular dysfunction, then we're going to have mitochondrial dysfunction and vice versa. If we have cellular dysfunction, we don't allow nutrients to get into the cells. So we can do testing to look at nutrients, say, you know, your B vitamins. We can look at your B vitamins if they are sitting in your serum or if they're sitting in the cell, right? If they're getting into the cell, which is where they're utilized, is inside the cell. So we can see that, you know, if we're looking at this panel, we can see that somebody might be high in, say, B12 in their serum, but they're low cellularly or intracellularly, which means that B12 that's running around in their serum's not doing its job. So nothing's getting done. So, oh, look who's here, come on in. Hey, how are you?
Great.
Come have a sit here. Everybody, this is Dr. Ben Busch. We just got started just a minute ago. Thank you. You can go ahead and close it all the way. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So everybody knows that when you are a practicing physician, shit happens. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just had a patient go late. Somebody had some extra questions.
Yep. It happens.
You gotta put people first.
Absolutely. That's what's important. So a couple of things. Here are your cameras. We'll talk. That should go away. And then these two cameras here. So there you
Perfect.
go.
I'll sit. We'll get nice and
Yeah,
cozy.
I know.
Awesome.
So I was just talking about cellular dysfunction and mitochondrial dysfunction, but what we do first always is we start the show with gratitude. So what are you thankful for today?
You know, I'm thankful for the fact that I'm in a place where I can really focus on the things that are important to me. So my family, you know, tucking my kids into bed every night is just a really wonderful opportunity to be there for the little things.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm also, you know, I gave up anxiety for Lent. So I really tried to not white knuckle through life and to try to really just kind of be okay with the serendipity that happens around us and the unexpected.
I love it. That's awesome. Very good. I'm grateful to be going to Portugal next week or the week after.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm like, that might be my gratitude for the next 2 months. I don't know.
Or year.
Yeah. Yeah, heading to Portugal for 10 days. It's going to be such a long flight, maybe the longest flight I've taken, so that's a little unnerving. But once we get there, it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited about it.
I've actually been to Portugal.
You have?
The Iberian Peninsula is one of my favorite places on planet Earth.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so, you know, there's so much to see. Are you going to Lisbon as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're flying into Lisbon. My hope is we're going to hit it from top to bottom.
It's pretty cool.
So, yeah.
What's amazing is, like, you know, there's like, this city is like more than 1,000 years old, and the roads are just like all cobblestone. I actually went there. They had a big festival where they were out in front cooking fish, and so, you know, you walk through and you're having a nice glass of wine, and people were just excited. So it's a really special place.
That's what everybody says. It's just special and beautiful, and I just can't wait. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when the world was flat way back then, it was the end of the world. So
yeah. I can see how that could be the case. Yeah. Awesome. All right, so let's jump in. I think first, so I was talking a little bit about, like I said, mitochondrial dysfunction, which is sort of, you know, the basis of foundational health, right? We got to have our mitochondria functioning properly, cellular health, we've got to have our cells functioning properly. And so all I was saying, because I want to get into how you started, which I think is so interesting, where you started from and how you got to this place of just super cutting edge technology, which is really, really fun and gets me super giddy. But we always, when we're looking at foundational health, good cellular, I was talking about testing, because what we can do, we have the ability to look at what's in the serum that's not doing anything for us versus what's actually getting into the cell. So my point to that was, if we're not getting the nutrients that we need into the cell, then our cells aren't functioning properly, our mitochondria is not functioning properly. So then we get into root cause. Why is that? Why is there this dysfunction that's not allowing nutrients to get into the cell? Why are the mitochondria not doing what they're supposed to do? So what are the questions? Is there infection? Are there toxicities? You know, is there stress? You know, whatever all of these root cause things can be that can impact our health and then create that kind of spiral that you see a lot in practice, right?
Yeah. So I think if we think high level, you know, we eat food and it mixes with oxygen to make energy. That's the goal of all of this, right? Is you need energy to stay warm. You need it to, you know, move. You need it to dance. You need to do anything requires energy. And so during that process, you make these things called oxygen radicals, right? And they interact with things, but that's a part of normal metabolism. Like we do that all day long. And we have these things called antioxidants that actually quench that. Blueberries, turmeric, salad, right? Like good choices, right? So it's when there's not enough antioxidants or the right nutrients in the cell that there starts to be this reaction that's happening outside of where it's supposed to be, right? And we see oxidative stress, which is what that's called. We see it all around us. It's what rust is happening, like when you see like an old, you know, car or even just, you know, a green banana turning brown, right? That's an oxidative stress reaction. So it's happening inside of all of us, and it's important to make sure that your body has the right nutrients, right? Those antioxidants that you need. But when it's happening in your body, it actually causes inflammation. And that inflammation is really the key in what causes fatigue, lack of energy, or hypertension, or accelerated cardiovascular disease, or obesity, or diabetes, or accelerated aging. And it's actually implicated quite a bit even in what we're finding out about cancer. So So these fundamental molecular and cellular processes are really the bedrock of what it means to feel good, right? And to be healthy. Yeah. And so that's what we've been focusing on, because when I think about living a long life, I want to be a healthy 100. Right?
That's the key right there. Is so many people, you know, we focus so much on longevity. I want to live to be however long I want to live. Well, I want to live however long I'm going to live
with quality.
With quality.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's, you know, God can take me tomorrow. right? But I want to feel good today. He might take me in 10 years, but I want to make sure that I'm walking and learning and experiencing and loving and feeling good throughout that time, however long that I'm here.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's important.
I couldn't agree more. So what we do is, we start with patients coming in. We just get an idea of their total body composition, the bioimpedance testing. And then we do what's called a VO2 test, where we can actually look at your resting metabolic rate and determine, how well are you making energy from fat or from carbs. And that gives us a good idea of where we need to start with even stuff like diet and nutrition, just because there's little things you can do that actually take you a long way.
Yeah. We were having this conversation yesterday about how, each of us starts in practice and what we can do just to start movement. So patients and or clients it's feeling better quickly, because once you start feeling better, then you can start to take more steps to move forward and address the things that need to be addressed. Yeah.
I think you can have some big gains with little things. And I think that 80-20 rule, we apply it in so many different places, right? Like 80% of the problem is on usually 20% of the stuff you can focus on. But then you're right, as we are nurturing someone back to health, then we can start using some of these precision testing, right? Where each person has their own plan, right? And that's the wonderful, it's not a one-size-fits-all formula or doing things based on statistics, like we think this might work. That's where you start to really dial it in, whether it's, your stool testing for gut health or nutrient testing to figure out your metabolism or genetics and more.
Yeah, I love the genetic testing. So let's do this. Let's back up real quick so people have an understanding of where you came from. Because you have a super interesting story, and my assumption is that you did not, when you started med school, you did not expect to be doing what you're doing today. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think any of us knew what we were going to be doing 10 years from now.
Well, we can have plans, but I totally agree with you. Yes.
Life is what happens when you're making plans, though, right?
Right.
So I grew up in a very complementary-minded household. So my folks, they actually lived above a vitamin store when they got married.
Nice.
So they, we grew our own vegetables, and I had a chiropractor and an old DO just looking after me as a youngster. Then I ended up getting a biochemistry degree, so really doing a deep dive on metabolism itself. And then Michigan State had 2 medical schools across the train tracks from each other, and so the MD and the DO school were in many of the same classes, but there were actually more classes in the DO school. I chose the DO route, where osteopathic medicine is this idea that there's the mind, body, spirit, and that we can nurture the body to heal. And so it was with that foundation of understanding what's going on with metabolism, really looking at the science, but then being open to different ways of healing people, right? So there's a lot of things in energy, right? And nutrition, and what about manual therapy and surgery or pharmaceuticals or radiation? There's all these things to consider, right? And so I landed in emergency medicine, which was just a great career, helping people through a really bad day, right?
Yeah.
But it allowed me to really focus on the teamwork part of medicine, where, because I think medicine's a team sport, right? Where, someone needs to communicate with orthopedics, but we also need to advocate with OBGYN and neurology and urology and all the different specialties. So that's what I learned, was how to take care of every little detail. That created a really strong foundation to be comfortable, to learn about what's happening in medicine. But then, like anything, once you've been doing it for 10, 15 years, you start to really focus on the problems, right? The things that we're not addressing. And that was where I ended up, really trying to help change medicine, patient engagement, right? Like educating people is really important. So that's part of what I did. And looking at the systems, I ended up going towards an MBA in health administration. And it was in that process, actually, the COVID pandemic was raging, and I had a COVID testing place on the side. And we were doing the monoclonal antibody treatments, but people kept on coming in. They're, 30-year-old runners just weren't getting better. And I think that's when we all had this idea of like long COVID and chronic fatigue. What is that? And So I ended up doing a public health class and wrote a paper on how nutritional deficiencies affect the outcomes in COVID. And I think we all knew that there was something to do with, vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, selenium. We understand that, and that's where I think, once you're educated in it, you understand that that's oxidative stress, right?
It's true, and I think one of the most frustrating things that came out of or going through COVID was that nobody was talking about that piece of it. Nobody was talking about nutrition. Nobody was talking about sleep and all of these different factors that are so important to health, period, let alone trying to get through something that nobody knows anything about. And it was just really frustrating because it can make such a huge difference.
Well, I think, in all fairness, I think that that you can only talk about so much at the same time, right? And people were focused on one thing, and I think our public at large has really gone through the shock and awe of COVID and realized that there's something more to medicine than what we were doing. And I think that's where the opportunity is now as we move forward into this sort of new life that is, around all of us right now. So there were certainly many people who understood more into the situation, and whether or not they had a voice or were able to speak is different. But taking the steps now where we know so much more about metabolism, about some of these chronic illnesses where we have people with chronic Epstein-Barr and herpes viruses and cytomegalovirus, right? So we have a better understanding, even HIV and hepatitis, right? I mean, we're making giant strides, so I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. And so you went from COVID to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, so we started having, I didn't even work at this place. I had nurse practitioners and EMTs and nurses taking care of patients. We had 40 employees, and we were seeing 300 patients a day. I mean, it was really busy. But they would consult me, Dr. Busch, these people found out about you because I was giving people educational information about, hey, if you spray some diluted iodine in your nose, you can kill viruses. Or maybe you should take some quercetin with that zinc, right? Just little things, but it the word spread that there was a doctor who was paying attention to more than just wearing a mask and washing your hands. And so come late spring, early summer, I had 50 patients already. And I didn't even own a medical practice. Right? So there was this resounding swell of people who were interested in what I had to say. And about that time, I saw some things that, at some point you're done having the trauma of emergency medicine. And so I was ready for a new change in my life, and I had the support of my family. My wife was really encouraging, and having a facility and staff and doing infusions, I really started to look at how can we handle oxidative stress. And so ViveWell Health was born, and I decided to turn a page.
Cool. So at this point, you are working with essentially the foundation of medicine, the foundation of health, but you have expanded into what is a clinic full of cutting-edge therapies, equipment, testing, all of these things that can help with dysfunction, also help with optimization. Yeah.
Well, I think that's right. As an emergency physician, I had lots of tools. Whether you're reaching for ultrasound, CT, MRI, right, or you call a head and neck surgeon, or you call a helicopter, right, and so these tools, what to reach for, I like to think of it like cooking, right? You don't just use salt and pepper for everything, right? And so when we were looking at the things that we need, whether it's different testing or different treatments, there's a lot of things that, besides just prescribing a supplement, sometimes we have to do things to people, right? And that's where a lot of my skills with managing complex infusions and procedural medicine really translates into helping the patient through lots of different things. And then when we look at, how do people think about health, I think it's important to think that some people are starting in weight management, right? Whereas other people, they have this fatigue they're trying to work on. Or maybe it's their really aching joints and back that's preventing them from getting the exercise that they already know they need, right? And so, or hormone health. And so helping people the way they want to be helped is the foundation of what this is, rather than me taking my ideas of health and putting them onto somebody else. I want them to sort of come to their own conclusions, and we can help them along how they want to be helped.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you have movement quickly, which is, I think that's what any of us want, is let's get some quick results, because when we don't feel well, we don't work well, we don't do well, we don't love well, we don't do all of the things that we should be doing, that we want to be doing, right? I think that we all have this this path in life that we've been, it's this God-given path, and we want to be able to do it, but when we don't feel good, we can't. And that's what we're seeing so often, is so many people are just struggling, and it's heartbreaking to struggle so desperately. And when you bring in the therapies that you have, so we can, kind of name off a few of them and dig into them a little bit, but whether it's the IV infusions, we see IV vitamin infusions all over the place at this point, but we can do this therapeutically and individually, and not and add in things that you can add in that your typical IV spa cannot add in. And so these are the things that help people get where they want to be, so they can continue to move forward and progress to where they want to go. So let's maybe start there.
Yeah. So obviously most people know about these IV hydration bars, and they use different nutrients. Certainly there's a role for that, and we talked about how if someone has any gut dysfunction, there's eating good food, digesting it, and then actually absorbing it, right? And if people have a breakdown there, then they can have nutritional deficiencies, which lead to less energy, right? So we can target that with IV nutrition, but that's not our most common treatment, right? I would say most of our treatments are actually based on us manipulating your metabolism. So we talked about those oxygen radicals. They figured out back in the 60s in Europe, right, where they're pretty open-minded about health, how they could actually take blood and they figured out that the antioxidant capacities in the plasma, not the cells, right? And they could stress the blood with this stuff called ozone. It's a clean, electrified, excited oxygen that you can add just a little bit of stress. The principle is called hormesis, where some is good, more is not better. This is not the supersized American way.
Right, yeah.
And what they did was they stressed a little bit and then sent it back in, and your body responds to stress, right? Like we do push-ups, you come back and get stronger. And so when we reinfuse blood that's been treated with ozone, it actually signals the body to create more antioxidant enzymes and to push down inflammation. So these ozone major autohemotherapy infusions are the foundation of what helps somebody do metabolic push-ups, okay? And then besides the nutrients, right, we've looked at those diagrams, and we see where we know different toxic metals and toxins really interfere with your metabolism. So removing those toxins, sometimes we need help, right? You can do a detox and a cleanse or something, but if you don't have any pathways to remove mercury or lead or cadmium or arsenic or whatever it is, then we provide those services. It's called chelation. So we do toxic metal chelation. The last service is one that most people don't think about, I think, which is using phosphatidylcholine. This is it's a mouthful. We usually call it PC, but your cells have a lipid membrane around them, right? And that's why soap works so well. It's because it works with lipids. Okay. And so when people have oxidative stress, it causes these holes in the cells, and so that's kind of why like an old orange looks all shriveled up. That's what our cells look like. And so with these therapies, we can also help repair the cellular membrane by giving these infusions. Now, of course, you can get it in sunflower seeds or soy, but it's digested in a way where it's actually better to give it IV.
Mm-hmm.
And we started out getting phosphatidylcholine from the Ukraine, but the war really put a kibosh on that. And then, so now we import it from Germany, right along the Austrian border there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they haven't changed the recipe in 70 years.
No kidding.
So this is stuff where they've known for decades that this is the way to help people, whether it's with age and health rejuvenation, or even there's evidence to show that phosphatidylcholine can pull apart the plaque on the inside of your arteries. And so they use this for their heart patients.
You know, there are so many things that we don't recognize, I think, the way that we should here in the States. And I think it's sad because we have, I think our R&D is great. I think we have so much to offer in this country, but the fact that we tend to just push away some of these things that can be the most therapeutic and the least harmful, I think in a lot of ways, it breaks my heart, and I don't understand it. And I appreciate what you are offering because of that.
Well, I think we have to think about the competing incentives in the healthcare right now, right? So we have an insurance-based practice, right? And this is the MBA talking, where the average person is going to change their insurance plan every 24 months, right? So the insurance companies, they don't have a financial incentive to invest in the patients, because even if they renew their plan, it's going to renew under a different title of the plan, and so it goes into a different bucket. So if they help someone quit smoking, they don't realize any of the financial benefits there, and it's really an expense. So if we think about it from a business perspective, the insurance companies are trying to spend as little as possible to keep people healthy. Whereas, you know, the healthcare systems, right? So some of the ones in Colorado are actually some of the most profitable hospitals in the entire country.
Really?
And so and so without naming any names, right, some of them have over a 20% profit margin. And so their incentive, of course, is to make money. Nonprofits, even though they don't post a profit, they still build a brand new hospital every 2 or 3 years, right? And
we got a big one going up.
So when we start thinking about the competing incentives, right, where spending as little money as possible for the patient's benefit, but raising the prices so that when they do encounter healthcare, it's the most expensive. You know, people have medical bankruptcy all over the place, right?
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, this translates into, so how do we market healthcare, right? And so we market healthcare systems that have the money to pay for it, and then we market pharmaceutical companies, right, that are trying to make as much money as they can for drugs. And so people aren't going to make any money on phosphatidylcholine or ozone therapy, and so it's not a sound that can rise above the other noise.
Right, yeah. So for your clinic, you're a little bit unique in the way that you are practicing and approaching your patients.
Yeah.
Because it's the way that you're doing it is benefiting them. I see it in multiple ways, and is thinking outside the box, right? It's one of the first things that you said when we first met was what you're doing is trying to think outside the box for moving forward.
Yeah.
So talk about your clinic and how you've kind of hybridized it for the patient benefit.
Yeah, this idea of disruptive innovation, like Uber, right? Uber destroyed the taxi industry because they were able to find some solutions that actually made a difference, right? And so what we're trying to do is really start from the position that we think people can heal. Like, your body was made to heal.
Funny.
Right? Instead of Band-Aid medicine. And that we think people, it's in their best interest to get better and to live the life, the quality, the enjoyment that they feel called to, right? And so it's from there that, you know, we take this idea where you look at the nutrition and the toxins, you look at the signaling markers, and then, you know, you help heal the gut, but then, you know, we're able to address other pressure points like the regenerative therapies. So we use peptides and platelet-rich plasma and stem cells and exosomes, you know, the best of what's out there right now to make that available, because you read a newspaper article and you're like, where do I get this stuff?
Right.
And that's where, you know, having a trusted, you know, facility with competent providers who are using evidence-based care. This is the stuff we want, right? Where we know this works, it's not snake oil. So we're able to combine that in a way that people can easily access it. And then the next part is like, well, how do you pay for it, right? And so, as an ER doc for 20 years, you know, there's a lot of billing that we have to know about, and how do you clarify what you did in the conversations. So that's where we're working to build a hybrid model where people can use their health insurance the best that they can, right? And so, so if you could, you know that you're going to get reimbursed at least for the doctor visit or a portion of things, then people are more likely to say, well, if I'm using my insurance, of course I want to pay a little bit better. Yeah. So just like when you put really good tires on your car, right? You've got that nice Corvette, and so you've got really good tires on there, so your car has great performance, and that's where, you know, people are willing to pay a little extra for the good stuff.
Yeah. No, I love that, because one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, do I take insurance? I'm not a medical practitioner. I do not take insurance, but to have the ability to know good practitioners who take insurance, so that those funds can be utilized, because so often I think people are like, well, I need to do all of these things. I'm trying to go to these doctors. I'm not getting help, and I need to figure this out, and I can't use my insurance, but I'm sitting here paying for it.
Yeah.
Which is really frustrating.
Yeah, and it feels like you're wasting your money.
Well, yeah.
Or people have a high deductible health plan, and they don't feel that they're getting the value out of that money. And so that's where we're able to really help people be cost-conscious consumers of healthcare, right? And to choose to go to a doctor that is actually paying attention to the whole picture, right? Yeah. And now, I'm not the smartest person, okay, but you know, I'm very teachable, and I like to exercise intellectual humility, right? Where I don't know everything, okay, but that's when you phone a friend, right? And so you work with a team, right? And so we're exploring a relationship together where I can use your knowledge of nutrition and the way you talk to people to help, you know, nurture them along with chronic conditions, right? Or to feel like they understand the game plan better, right? But then also really to give respect and gratitude to the people who came before us, who really figured this out, who were the tip of the spear, right? And these, because it wasn't cool back then to think about alternative treatments, right? And somebody had to question the dogma and what's normal, right? Yeah. I think it was Ronald Reagan who said status quo is Latin for the mess we're in. Right? And so really, like, we're in a mess right now, and most people are a mess, and just doing the same thing isn't going to make it better, right? And so that's why we have to think, is this all there is? And I think that's where we all ended up at this place right now, where we're questioning the status quo to think, what can we do better? And that's where innovation happens.
Agreed. So let's get away a little bit from the chronic patient to your super athlete, your performer, we're covered up with them here in Colorado. Everybody wants to go run mountains and stuff. I'm like, no, thank you. But a lot of people do.
It's an exciting group of patients. You know, I have a patient who, so aside from, you know, getting people from the, you know, laying in bed to crawling and walking, right? There's the people who are already walking or jogging, and how do you get people to really, you know, we have a lot of committed athletes, I would say that, right? And so these people fine-tuning what's going on with them and helping with some strategy is actually really exciting. We have a guy who's actually training for a 500-mile bike race. I know, right?
No, thank you.
He's like, oh yeah, I'm training during the Leadville 100. Right? And so, you know, which is like the pinnacle of mountain biking sports, to be honest with you. So the idea is that we can measure using VO2 max. Okay, that's where, you know, you're exercising with a mask on, and we get the resting metabolic rate, and then we put them right on the bike, and we get a good idea of those targeted heart rate zones, and so we can actually help people reach higher with their aerobic capacity. Right? When people, you know, are working and you start to cramp up, right, and you're working out, that's lactic acid, which is actually you're sort of redlining your body, and so we want to actually help raise that bar because when you produce the lactic acid in this anaerobic metabolism, you actually, that's when you age faster. you actually cause the damage around your body because you can't quench that. And so we want to prevent that and help people safely really raise the bar for themselves. And we can do that with ozone therapy and peptides, right? These signaling molecules made out of amino acids where we can actually help improve mitochondrial efficiency. There's some exciting ones. Now I try everything myself. I experiment on myself, I'll admit it, so that I know that it's safe and I figure out and I can explain what it is that's going to happen. So typically the way it rolls out is I'll start doing something to myself after very careful exploration and then we'll move it to my family members, right? And I think if you're willing to treat your family a certain way, then you know it's going to be safe. And so that's bar none how we do this. And then I'm willing to offer it to my patients after that. So we have a robust athletic performance optimization, kind of turning you into super you, as we say.
No, I love that. And I kind of have that all over all of the social media is the super you. I think, because you just said that the other day on the phone. Had you said that before?
Yeah.
You have been saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's because it's great. It's true. We want to be, I want to be super me.
Exactly, right? And if you think about putting a cape on, right? And you're like, I think we all know some of us do have superpowers, right? Yeah. And whether it's intuition or your ability to really relate to people or you're really good at focusing at this thing, right? But there's parts that you're not so great at. And so we want to elevate the whole person, right? And people feel better. We talked about this just yesterday, how people feel so much better when they're exercising. And if you get a bigger benefit from the exercise you're doing, right? You don't have to be a professional athlete. You do not have to be, a hardcore elite athlete. But the people who are going to the gym, if they get a better benefit from the time they're investing in the gym, then everybody wins. Your family wins, your kids win, your job wins, right? That's what it is. And so we think we can make society better by having healthier people.
So let's move that into a little bit of, you still need to leave 5 minutes early?
I'm good.
You are good, okay.
Yeah.
Let's move that into kind of a little bit of the anti-aging, because I know you're doing some brain rejuvenation. You're doing a few other things. I don't know if you consider anti-aging or, cosmetic or,
So anti-aging is more than Botox.
Yes,
let's
agreed.
agree with that.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes, I don't like Botox.
So we'll touch on a couple things you brought there. So this idea of pace of aging is really important, and I think it's good that a car analogy might work here, right? So somebody says you want to buy a 2015 Honda Accord. You're thinking like, okay, 2015 is kind of getting old, right? But then. So who drove it? If it was a teenager, forget it. You don't want that, right? Or what if they smoked, right? Like it's going to smell bad, right? But if some granny left it in her garage, then like it'd be a great car, right? You get some new tires, change the oil, it's probably going to be just fine, right? So this idea of how hard we drive our body is this idea of a pace of aging. So if you've lived through a war, right? Or if you've smoked, or if you've gone through several people in your family dying, right? Even pregnancy can accelerate aging because you have a parasite growing inside of you. And so this idea, pregnancy, like we'll use that as an example, it can actually age you like 1.3 to 1.4 years per 12 months.
Isn't that interesting?
Okay, and so when we measure like how many months are you aging versus 12 months, you can actually, with some of these therapies, measure a biological age in the immune system. There's some pretty high-end epigenetic studies looking at T cells, all these things. But then also, we can do that based off of what we expect with your VO2 results. Okay, so that metabolically we're measuring energy output, and to say, when I started this stuff, I had the biological age of a 55-year-old as a 45-year-old. So I was accelerated because of the stress of the ER, the nights, and there was some lifestyle things I could change. So we can look at that and show measurable improvements in the pace of aging for people. But again, this is the reason we have people coming off their blood pressure medicine. They're stopping the statins. Those statins, they cause like dementia, 25% increase in diabetes, right? And even like your testosterone level drops, right? And so that's where we can actually turn that down and help people feel like a younger version of themselves.
So a lot of times, and I think what more and more people are hearing about are telomeres, right? Telomeres can help us see sort of, see what our age is. And I think a telomere, we have 120 years according to our telomeres. So you're saying that above and beyond that, there are other markers, VO2, other things that we can look at to help us understand what our true age is. And can you take those and put them all together?
Yep, so you can get a composite view. I think, there's a lot of really smart people out there thinking about this stuff, right? And my understanding is that no one tool is perfect, right? There's error, and we think this works because of X, but then, anybody who's smart can also poke holes in that idea. So if we get an idea, a composite view of looking at somebody's biological energy production with the VO2 test, and if people choose to spring for some advanced immune testing, or telomeres can be a part of that as well, you can get a whole picture where we have a pretty good idea of whether you are accelerated or not, and then we can use those same markers. As long as you're using the same test to track your progress, I think you can see, because people just want to win, and they don't really care about the specifics sometimes.
Right.
So I think that's what we can offer, and we know it works. There's lots of smart people working to study this stuff, and so we're just taking it and putting it together, just like different seasonings, right, to make something that works for people in their own lifestyle.
Cool. So talk about the brain rejuvenation.
One of my favorite. This is where your mess becomes your message. And I had a head injury, a pretty bad concussion snowboarding.
Okay.
I was cruising, and under the chairlift pole, there's that kind of that jump, and I was really wanted to hit this jump, and I got a little too close to the pole, and whack, and I woke up under the chairlift, and I damaged my helmet.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was about that time that I started to have some problems in my life, where I was actually starting to become sick, problems with stress, problems with hormones. Problems with stress, problems with hormones, and I started maybe a little more substance abuse, some anger issues. I'm going to be transparent.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, please.
This is what happens to people, and we see it with our TBI patients. We have all these people going to war, and they had a bomb blow off next to them. Or we have all these athletes who are playing really hard, and they hit their head
constantly.
But what happens is, we have MMA fighters coming in trying to work on this stuff. So the idea is that what about healing the brain? And so at a conference, I met someone who'd spent, this is their life's work, and they had been working in the Department of Defense and with the Wounded Warrior Project. Dr. Mark Gordon is, he's one of my heroes. I have several heroes, but he really was putting together lots of bench research, Department of Defense research, and really he connected the dots here, and like this idea of neuroinflammation is a subsequent process. And it's not just right after you hit your head. It's like they actually tested and they figured out it's up to 17 years later. So it's never too late to start. Well, I mean, I think that we have taken the concussion and the TBIs and put them into this category where it's alone, instead of saying what are the downstream effects, including, leaky gut, which leads to all of these other things, right? I mean, and I think that's why it's so important that we have put more of a emphasis on protecting kids because of this. We're not putting together, okay, my kid had 3 concussions, and at 25 they're anxious, or they're sick, or they have autoimmunity, or they end up in jail.
They end up in jail, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It shows that if you've had a concussion and you lost consciousness, your chance of going to jail is up 250%.
Unreal.
Okay, and 87% of people who are incarcerated have a history of a head injury.
Wow.
Okay, it
That's
transforms
so
lives.
I didn't know that.
But then you think about substance abuse and anger, how that transforms into divorce, and what does that do to your kids? The fatherhood stats are a big deal. Right, and so that's part of my mission. Is if you can help people's brain, then they're nicer to be around, and they are better at holding a job down and creating relationships around them and nurturing those relationships. And it's actually, if you're thinking about foundational principles, healing the brain is actually not that hard. We know how to do it, and there's a lot of data on it. So it's, your fish oils and making sure that you're using quercetin and cool things like ashwagandha, and right. And then the next part would be the neuroactive steroid management, which we do in our practice. but that's all part of balancing hormones anyway. So I'm almost done with my test for what's called interventional neuroendocrine specialty.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're able to have the stamp of approval of Dr. Gordon's organization, TBI Health Now, and we also use another tool. I think we're one of the only clinics in the country that does this, where we do the medical interventions with interventional neuroendocrine. It's a mouthful, right?
Yeah.
But then the idea of neuroplasticity, of pushing your body to make more brain connections, that's common talk in mental health, but also in concussion repair. We have this thing called the gyrostem, right? Where you can sit in this big gyroscope with laser pointers and you hit targets while you're moving, okay? Like going upside down. And it's actually a lot of fun. People look at it and they're thinking it's kind of scary.
It's like the size of this room.
As big as the room.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So we have 2 of them.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So we're expanding. We're thinking about expanding to a new practice, probably in the Colorado Springs area.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So it's an exciting time where we can actually, just like push-ups, get you stronger. Going in the gyrostem pushes your brain to react faster. So it's an FDA-approved device for concussion, TBI, PTSD, vertigo, and stroke. But it helps our athletes perform better. So whether it's racket sports or hockey or baseball or those MMA fighters, people are seeing tremendous improvement. It's been pretty cool.
That's amazing. So much fun. So I want to make sure that if there's anything else that you want to hit on that we do, and that people know where and how to find you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So our practice is called ViveWell Health. ViveWell.health. And we're in Arvada, right around 64th and Ward. Okay, we have patients actually driving in from the Dakotas, from across the mountains. I have a patient who's visiting from France this summer, and she's actually going to be coming in. So once we have a personal relationship, we can do a lot of follow-up. So we have people who come in, they're on vacation, they hit their head skiing, they come in, and then we'll continue the relationship with them in Boston or whatever that is, because we've already had a face-to-face reaction. So, and technology makes it easier to do that. So people can book online. If they have more questions, we do a free discovery session. So my staff's great at just kind of explaining and asking what it is people want, and then we'll figure out a tailored plan to work with you.
Yeah, awesome.
So ViveWell.health. The phone number is 303-565-VIVE.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
All right, so reach out. His clinic is very comfortable. The people, all the staff, they're all amazing, really amazing people, doing amazing things, and that's why we're glad to have you on. That's why we do this show. Is people need to know more about what's outside of the typical, what's outside of the norm, and what we can do to get well, but also what we can do to get better.
Yeah. The best version of yourself.
Yeah. Super you.
Let's transform you into becoming super you. That's right. Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and maybe we'll find some other things to talk about.
I have no doubt that we'll find other things to talk about.
We could talk forever.
Such good stuff. All right, so of course you can find me here every Thursday, streaming live, KUHSdenver.com, and then Taste Life Nutrition on all the places, all the social media, the website. You can go to the website, fill out a free assessment, and I will reach out to you. We'll chat a little bit, see if I can help, or see if we can find somebody really cool who can help too.
We'd love to help you and work together and figure out what works for you.
Yeah, awesome. Let's see what else. Soulful conception. If you are looking to, or if you're planning for pregnancy, reach out. This is the stuff that can change the health of the future, and I fully believe that. And that's my goal and my mission is to help you get healthy today, so you can have the healthiest, great grandchildren you can possibly have. So
yeah.
That's
actually, maybe that should be our next. We were talking about our healthy parent, healthy baby initiative. That people are really trying to grow and have more family, but there's so much to do, and it can affect your kids. You're right. It can,
and I think that there's not everybody can plan, and I get that things happen, but when we have the time, the ability to take a few months, it's 4 months to make sure that your eggs are in a really good spot. But if we take that time, if we start to, address whatever symptoms that you have, if we address, autoimmunity and antibody activity and these things, and start to bring you to a place where you're feeling good. You don't have the fatigue. You're able to maybe do some of these amazing therapies to help push you forward that much quicker. You are impacting the future, right? For hundreds of years. I mean, it's data. So it's good stuff.
That's a big conversation.
It is.
I like that you're thinking that way. It's so true. Yes. Well, thanks again for having me. It's been really fun.
Here. Yeah. Super cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week, 10 a.m. Mountain Time on KUHSdenver.com. Bye. Do you need to go?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
That was fun.
It was fun. Let me turn off my stuff here.
You have a great